My fabulous necklace is broken. But there's something else more important that we need to talk about, or I've decided to make a video today to talk about, which is Russia. Um, because we've all seen the stories, and it's a discussion that I feel I need to contribute to, but I actually find politics such a draining and complicated activity. To be able to address this issue with the seriousness it deserves, I decided it needed more than just a few Facebook comments here and there. And it also became very apparent to me very quickly that it's something that's a lot more complicated than and not as cut and dry as some people are framing it, and but it's something that deserves our dedication. So let's have some background history about Russia first, which first and foremost, from some of the reports I've read, it indicates that the LGBT doesn't really exist in Russia in the same way as we understand it to exist in the West. This doesn't mean that, like, because it's their culture and their values that it's okay, but it's the fact that I think the particular wording in the law that Putin's passed is actually basically conflates paedophile with homosexual. So this is actually why the vast majority of Russians don't really see, haven't, this is what the report said, don't really see much of a problem with it, and also why it's got like 100% support in the Duma, which is their parliament, and only one absentee voter from it. Second of all, I checked out the history of the Russian Executive Office, and from the Tsar through to the USSR and right the way up to Putin. Putin. And it's really interesting. Back in Tsarist times, there was lots of Russian homosexuality around. Anal sex was illegal, but blowjobs were fine, apparently. And then what happened is, with the October Revolution, when the USSR was formed, Lenin decriminalized homosexuality, and there were many like open gay Soviet councils serving. In 1933, Stalin re-legalized it. But what was the way that they actually, the language in which the way in which they framed it again, it wasn't actually on a moral basis, but a way of protecting children, which is interesting. But that's something another issue. Anyway, after the collapse of the USSR in 1991, after its first president Gorbachev, the leader of the Russian Soviet, who was a guy called Yeltsin, became the president of Russia. Under a lot of liberal pressure from the West, he legalized homosexuality, and I think, fairly sure, and also he instituted economic shock therapy as well, which is where they sold off all of Russia's nationalised industries, and it got picked up by a small elite who had the money to be able to grab it at the time, which is how the Russian oligarchs were formed that we hear so much about. In 1991 to 1993, the president was trying to sort out his relationship with the parliament and through the way the constitutional relationship with this, and things got so tense that that at one point he had the army draw up in their tanks and shell the parliament building, and 187 representatives died. Sorry, I've got some notes to make me help stay on topic. Anyway, authoritarian, it still remained relatively authoritarian and sort of paternal, and also it's constitutionally so as well, with the heavy presidential powers. In 1999, Yeltsin resigned for some reason. I can't remember what it was, but it was very unexpected at the time, and he handed power on to his successor, who was Putin, who was a KGB officer for 16 years, so probably had lots of secrets and everyone. Anyway, Putin's kind of like the Regina George of the Russian government. He won 2 presidential elections in a row, and legally he couldn't run for a third term. So then his prime minister, Medvedev, who's basically Gretchen Wieners, basically he became the president, and then he made Putin the prime minister. So he stayed in power, at which time they changed the law so that Putin could run again for the presidential office, and this time, and he won it in 2011, and he also, it was for an extended 6-year term, as well, so, a while. Also, speaking of the number 6, that's how much the average income, that's how many times the average income has increased under Putin. Like, the average Russian is 600% better off over the time that Putin's been in power, in terms of actually their real wages that they're taking home. And then what's really interesting now is basically we can see Putin as being like the 21st century love child of Margaret Thatcher and Hitler, which is basically where they're kind of like rocket fuel for the economy and sort of and hate everything I love. and we pause to think about Margaret Thatcher a moment, that whilst we're living through the crisis of neoliberalism, which is the doctrine that was championed by her and Reagan, the new economic doctrine, it's causing so many problems. And also, she passed Section 28 in this country as well, which uses the exact same open-ended device of banning only the promotion of homosexuality to shut down conversations she didn't want occurring. Specifically in the education system here, but it had like society-wide effect, and it's still homosexuality in the education system is still something very like that teachers are very reluctant to speak out because they aren't sure about the relationship because of this law. And also, though, if we think about how popular she is even now, and even with huge swathes of the population she legislated against, because I think, again, because she was so good for the economy, she was a hard-headed leader and knew what she wanted, and she's basically Karen Smith to Putin's Regina George, we can begin to kind of think of the sort of like domestic power and like kind of popular support that Putin must have. And it also means that Russia, also as well, Russia is technically a developing country. It's one of the BRIC countries, which is Brazil, Russia, India, and China. But it's a developing country still technically because the way its economy works, and compared to a service-based industry like we have in London or lots of cities in America. It's an energy superpower. And just because you're not drinking Russian vodka, doesn't mean that you're not that every other drink in the bar has not been transported there using like Russian gasoline, Russian petrol, or or it was manufactured using it or something like that. It's just kind of like also Russia is the 6th largest country in the world in purchase power rankings. And I don't know what that means, but it's big. It's big, and it basically means it has a lot of buying power. Huge amounts. It's and also only 8.7% of Russia's exports. No, only 8.7% of Russia's economy is made up of exports, basically. And it's one of the few countries that's been largely unaffected by the financial crisis that started in 2008, the other one being China. It's a really big one of note. And so really this kind of like idea of this kind of like Western discipline, kind of like Team America backed up by their British sidekicks, is kind of really old hat and not entirely something that's relevant or viable in this particular situation. And also, not only that, we're kind of reaping the rewards of what we've sown, because after the West's Cold War victory, and we've created like a neoliberal hell nation of a micro elite that controls huge amounts of power, and also well, many of these things are bad. My notes don't cover this part, sorry. And also, I don't know how to edit videos at the moment, so I'm doing this all in one take. Sorry about it. But basically, the point is that, it's this neoliberal hell nation, and because it's with this kind of like this paternalistic, authoritarian way in which we've kind of commanded that they become capitalist and stuff like that, they've continued this on. Clearly, it's sort of something that's remained intact as well. And then also, with this kind of like attitude of like, oh, we in the West are going to tell them what to do. We're kind of reiterating precisely the paternalistic and authoritarian gestures which we're criticising Putin for. Which is basically, it's just like you're not being authoritarian in the right way, you're not being condescending the right way, or you're not being patronising in the right way. But the most interesting part, basically, actually, really is that there's a protest this Saturday. There's one in Whitehall, and then I think the other one got moved to the Russian embassy, from the Russian embassy to Whitehall to have a bigger impact, something like that. And I'm absolutely dying to go, but I can't because I've just been in hospital. And it's on the other foot too. See, I'm not being a wimp here. I don't live in London at the moment either, so. But I can't go. But you should go. Everyone should go. But sorry, there's a bug. However, but you shouldn't just go as a protester, because if we think, there's been a lot of really big, really high-profile protests recently that just really haven't achieved their goals. Like all the student protests, for example, recently, the tuition fee hike. Also, I remember as well, like everything for Pussy Riot as well outside that happened outside embassies, and there's been huge celebrity endorsements and free Pussy Riot everywhere, and there's even T-shirts and stuff like that, and it's kind of this very like sort of typical style of liberal protesting that hasn't really worked. Even also as well, the million people who watched against the war in Iraq, and we're still in an illegal war after 10 years, after every premise that we went to this war on has either been undermined or admitted to be a patent lie. But anyway, the point is that even after these failures, you should still attend the protest. But we collectively, even those that aren't there, need to be prepared to do more than that. People need to be willing to have serious discussions about how to create and sustain solidarity with Russian activists, and more as well. But really, what we need to work out is we need to. It's going to take a long time. It's going to be hard, but we need to work out a serious way to be international allies, and also we shouldn't just objectify Russia and Russian youth as these totally passive things that just need to be saved. And also we can't allow ourselves to turn the LGBT in Russia into the latest vanity project to show how conscientious we are. And we need to be cautious also that the latest fashionable accessory in politics, which is online petitions. Do you know what I remember? Wristbands. Okay, if every single person buys a wristband for £2 and wears the white wristband, we're going to raise enough money to solve the crisis in Africa, and then because everyone's going to be wearing a white wristband, everyone's going to be talking about it and be caring about it, we're sort everything out. And I know what we'll do. We'll have a super concert. We'll get loads of celebrities there because celebrities solve problems and because they're popular and people care. Yeah. And now this is just if we get enough likes on Facebook and get this shared enough, we're going to save the world. Woo! Oh my God. Algorithms for action. Likes for liberalism. Yeah. This is bullshit. Okay. And you should say it's bullshit when you see it as well. This is just crap. Okay, this is crap. It's just that we've had so many things like this which people just kind of just take up, sort of dance around with for a bit and then drop before moving on to the next one. And what's going on is really so horrible that we really, really, really do have an obligation to try our best to support them. But what I'm most worried about, really, in my ways, is I'm just really worried about this going to be another incident where we're just going to politically be really uncritical, and we're just going to reiterate all the relationships and all the power things that just of the status quo that allowed this situation to happen in the first place. And also, right now, I think it's really important to say that in the especially in the British LGBT community, that there's really a huge ideological overinvestment in to a lesser extent Russia, but also especially in gay marriage. But Russia's also serving the same function as well. And I have a feeling that once the two of these events manifest in some sort of climax, some sort of moment, then all the kind of political agency and motivation behind this is just going to short circuit, and we're going to lose all this this organisation and this willingness to the betterment of things. Because if anyone's paying any attention, then you'll know that our government's getting very quietly really ready to brutally fist us, or especially really to fist anyone who might be disruptive or kind of try and inspire distance in any way that isn't state sanctioned. And also specifically as well, anyone's going to be doing any of this online. There's a lot of laws that have been changing, and really, really what it means, though, is people are going to be often going to be able to go get gay married and be fine, be fabulous, but queer lives will be ruined. And I really want to finish now on just on two related points. And the first one is a concept I've been hearing a lot about recently. There's a really amazing set of lectures from an international conference that happened on YouTube, which is called Pinkwashing, which is entwined with homonationalization. That's it, Pinkwashing and homonationalization. And there's, again, I think if you Google it, you can be able to find a list to link to all the YouTube videos for it. And pinkwashing, though, is basically where gay rights is incorporated into a national discourse to ignore other societal abuses and cover it up and give it a nice pink glow so everything's nice. And my other second point is actually a small round of applause to Mr. Putin, who recently really pissed off Barack Obama by granting refugee status to Edward Snowden, who was the informer who released all the documents about the NSA, the National Security Agency, how it's gathering huge amounts of information on, and with no permission, on all of our private correspondence on Facebook and stuff like that, and also about how they've paid $100 million to a British subtractor who's called GCHQ, I think, and they're doing the same thing over here for us. No one's talking about this. And really, I find like there's a lot of things that anyone who's concerned with freedom of expression or the kind of like being, how should I say, a little bit different, who are turning a massive blind eye to the shit on their doorstep, to, you know, to go and fight, to turn their attention to the problems further afield. Because I think lots of people, well, they really want to have a fight that doesn't actually involve a real struggle. Because when something's really far away, you can just do that, and you can, you know, you do it for a bit, and you can give up and go away, and go back to your nice cozy life, while some child's still starving, or some youth still having their head kicked in, and before you know it, though, on your doorstep is like when you're fucked. Okay, like it's already that the radical vegans and the anarchists are starting to be arrested, with a number of situations, and no one cares about them because they're nut jobs. But what people always forget is that it's the people on the fringes. No, it's like it's people on the fringes who get it first, and I think that lots of like gays and drags and stuff, after they go off and get married, are going to forget that they were on the margins, and which are already being squeezed, and it's like, but they're just going to get them like one by one, and then just I know basically the next thing you know, all the freaks have gone, but then it's you who's gonna have your turn in the fucking death camps. It all leaves a sour taste in my mouth.